are. But this here's probably the one that's most recognizable as being, one of the Craftool, Tandy, products. This one here is an older one. And so what do I mean by that? Well, the older ones were made, well, I'll just take it apart and show you. They had a split ring up here that held the thing in place, and it had came to a fairly rounded point up here on the top of that shaft. And to make these really work well, what you should do is never put oil in them. But what you should do is put some graphite on top of that. Keep that polished up so that when it sits up in here, it spins nice and evenly on top of that top of that pin. And that's all it really is necessary. But that right there is the classic Craftool swivel knife that probably started the majority of the leather workers that are out here. You saw me in earlier segment there showing off George Hurst's swivel knife and Ken Griffin's swivel knife and even Lou Roth's swivel knife, and they all were basically some version of this. So that's what you're looking at there. Over the years, though, Craftool came along with many different knives. They, I think, one of the first ones that they hang on, there it is. One of the first ones that they came out with to move into a more high-tech age was this one here. This one here is a heavy old brass thing, the cast brass yoke on it, which that really took the world by storm. Everybody thought, oh my gosh, that is the perfect thing. It fits the finger just well. It was big and beefy. It had a 1/2-inch wide blade in it. But this right here, when it first came out, this other swivel knife that we were talking about here, this one here was probably selling for $5.95 or something like that, and this one came out, and I think it was about $40. Had a ball bearing in the yoke, which moves smoothly or smoother. They got better over the years, but this here was probably the first innovation that came along to upgrade the quality of the knife, and it really caught on. Tandy over those years, and again, this year's from my friend George Hurst. He gave me this knife here as they were looking to innovate and so forth. When he was in charge of the company of research and development for Tandy, they were trying to figure out how can we make leather work less expensive for folks. And so they came up with this. This is a plastic swivel knife. It sure enough is. The yoke just sits into this up here, but it fits in there very smoothly and works very well. And it actually has a blade in it that cuts, and it is plastic. And you know what? If it was built such that if you pulled that out, the other end of it is actually a bevel blade, and that just very ingenious. It's just a very innovative idea. They brought that out at the time to see if they could maybe find a way to, instead of spending the money to do one like this, could we make one out of plastic and make it less expensive for people to get started? Well, after they costed it out, guess what? This one cost more than this one, so that's why this one never got to market. So you're looking here at the prototype, one of the prototypes that was made for that knife, to my knowledge, the only one that exists. So, so that was one of their ventures along the line. They then started putting in, and I guess my swivel knife here that I'm using, this is my Old Faithful. And I'll show you that. I was going to show you this to last, but because obviously this is the most important knife here. This one here, well, you saw in the opening shot there, all of the leatherwork behind me and all around my shop. This is the knife that probably did it. It was, but again, this is one that probably came out from Craftool in the, it was the next generation right after this big old bulky thing. And it was still then on basically the traditional shaft that they were making, but it had this ball bearing yoke on it and the molded shape. This here's cast aluminum, so it's lighter weight. But anyway, this came around. It was too small for me, so a friend of mine did this braidwork on it. So that tells you a little bit about what I've gotten accustomed to. I've used this one. I've had this one with this blade, like you're looking at it here, for probably 35 years. And like I said, it's done the majority of the leather work that you see here. So that one came. And then after that, and I may get these messed up. After that came some Al Stohlman stuff. They came out with some stuff that was the Al Stohlman brand. And they had head knives and some cutting tools and so forth that had this little bit of work that you see here in the yoke. They came out with this one. It had two. They had the heavier barrel here, and then a thinner one, and that was the that came out. I guess there was another one before that, but anyway, that was another one they had for a little while. They had where do we go here? Then we went to yeah, that one came out, and then I think before that actually they had this one. It was called the Pro Line knife, and which is again basically a variation of the one I'm using for my Old Faithful. It's got that same kind of a yoke and everything in it. They called it the Pro Line. This was we're now into the 70s, probably late the mid 70s, maybe late. Yeah, no, we're further than that. We're probably into the mid 80s with this knife here. So it came along, and then this one here I can date pretty well because this one here was when they came out. It's basically the same knife, but they had special engraving done on it because this is the anniversary. This came out in 1996. It was the 50th anniversary of Craftool. And so this one here came out, and it's basically again the same knife, but it's got this extra engraving and such on it there. Again, a very very nice knife, worked very smoothly and so forth. And these right here, there's a lot of people that still use this. Well, I do. I mean, that's what I use. And then let's see, later generations. In fact, I think they still. I mean, no, getting ahead of myself again. The big bulky ones that you're talking about, they came out with different ones of that. They had this one for a little while. Okay, this one here is stacked leather. It's got different layers of leather stacked up in there, and this also was in that same Stohlman series where they had the fancy engraving up here at the top of the yoke. And I don't remember what it didn't come with that blade there. I think it came with that 1/2 inch wide blade, but anyway, they had that, and then a year or so later, after this one here lost its popularity, then came this one, this glitzy thing here. Also came in that Stohlman series, and look at that; it's all sparkly and got rubies and well, they're not real rubies, but they got some shiny stuff in there, sparkling and so forth. So these came along next. I think what they're currently selling in their higher end is this one here. This is their Craftool Pro series, and I think they still have this again in two different sized shanks, but again with the molded yoke up there. So these are some of the evolutions that came along with that. And I,
Do you like do you like a I noticed that some of them will have, just a straight part for your finger, and then some of them have like more of a curved and more of a molded type feel. Which one is
right.
it?
I like the yoke molded. I don't know if you were there when I showed this one. This is Old Faithful. This is the one that done
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
probably the majority of the leather work that's here, and you can see that it's got that molded yoke in it. Works very well, fits very comfortably. That does not make the knife work better or worse. That is still not the secret to running a swivel knife well. But I find that comfortable. When that molded yoke came along, that was definitely something that was very popular for a while. I've got a couple other versions. If you'll notice here, these knives right here all have the same yoke, all have the same engraving and such up here. This is the knife that came out from Tandy. And one of the things I discovered early on is that, you know what? This here just screws out. There's a shaft in here, screws out, and you can screw that back in. And so you could actually, what they did, obviously, then they stacked up leather on there with a hole punched in it, and that's how they made that handle. But if you take that off, you can put any kind of a wood on there that you want. This is some Buckeye burl that a friend made for me. This is one, of course, you got to have one with elk antler, right? And so had the same one. So these are all actually the same knife, but somebody modified these two for me to just because
Yeah.
I'm special, I guess. I don't know.
Well, especially that elk antler one. It wouldn't be it fits with Elk Track Studio, so
Of course. And then of course this one came along. They had this series of knives that came out. Well, actually, a whole series of tools, not a series of knives. This one here uh, uh, for the Tandy's 100th anniversary, which was in 2019. Yeah, They were 100 years old as a company, and so they came out with some 100th anniversary limited edition stuff. This is swivel knife number one, number 12 of I think 900. Anyway, they come out with a head knife and all that. I have that whole series, number 12 in that whole series. They had some belt buckles and stuff like that. It has Damascus steel in the blade, works really good. And I actually created a problem with this knife. I was up there at the local Tandy, and they said, "Hey, did you see the new knife we got?" I said, "Wow, that's awesome." And I already had the buckle. I said, "Any chance you'd have the number 12?" Well, they went out. They had just gotten them in, and the fellow that was running the store there went out and he said, "Yeah, we've got I got number 12 in the whole series if you want." And I said, "Well, let me buy it," and it's a pretty big ticket. I bought them all. So anyway, I'm pretty tickled with this. So I do a little online video showing people, "Hey, look at this neat knife I just got from Tandy," and I did some really fancy work with it and showed people that it worked well, and I was just really proud of it. And all hell broke loose. In that, all of a sudden, everybody wanted one of them knives like Jim Linnell has, and they were calling their local Tandy store. Well, they weren't out in the local Tandy stores. They were not planning to. They were planning to release all of these tools over the year, not all at once. And so, anyway, I jumped the gun, and so anyway, I created a little bit of an issue for him.
Anyway, hopefully, that guy at the Tandy store didn't get in trouble.
No, I'm sure he blamed me, so that's fine. So anyway, that's that knife. And then the other one I think a lot of folks have probably seen. This is another one that's kind of Tandy's common. I think they have this one today. It's the ergonomic thing. It's got rubber there, very comfortable. It's got a bit of a molded yoke to it, and again, this is reasonably priced. I think I don't remember what it is, but certainly a very good alternative. So that's kind of some of the evolution of Tandy.